From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Economists are warning of slower growth in Thailand, Southeast Asia's biggest economy. A major credit rating agency said recently that continued political unrest in Thailand could hurt the economy. Fitch Ratings noted a drop in manufacturing and lower sales of goods and services. The opposition Democrat Party has accused the ruling Pheu Thai Party of being disloyal to the king. That is a serious accusation in Thailand. The opposition has also questioned the fairness of recent elections. Now, foreign investors are expressing concern. The president of Toyota Motor Corporation in Thailand has warned that investors may put their money in other countries. Chris Bake is an expert on business in Thailand. He says major foreign investors are concerned about the lack of a clear winner in the February 2nd election. In addition, Thailand's government is facing financial pressures. The government promised to pay rice farmers more than $3 billion for rice at a higher price than market rates. Banks have been unwilling to loan the government money for the rice payments. Foreign investors have been withdrawing from the Thai stock market since political protests began in November. By the end of January, the leading measure of Thai stocks had lost 10% of its value. Some experts say the fact that the elections were largely peaceful is a hopeful sign. Yet, Thailand's economy has been hurt by the recent unrest in Bangkok. More than 40 countries have warned their citizens about the violence. The economy has recovered from earlier problems, but the unrest may make it harder for foreigners to want to return to Thailand. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. American Lamar Baylor spends most of his time in New York City. He works as a performer in the Broadway musical The Lion King. But since 2011, he has also spent weeks in Rwanda. There, he teaches dance to boys who live on the street. His teaching is part of an effort by the Rebecca Davis Dance Company. The project helps young people learn more about dance. It also helps them understand and learn good classroom behavior. Lamar Baylor describes his students as survivors of genocide. Most have lost their families. Some have been in jail. Others sold their bodies for sex. He says dance classes give the children structured learning and self-expression. Rebecca Davis created the dance company and leads it. She says she got the idea for the project after she visited Rwanda in 2008. She remembers seeing street children dancing, and she thought that dance could be used to get them off the street and into a safer place. Ms. Davis believes that learning to dance is a first step toward education. She says after children have learned to attend classes and follow directions, they can take classes in information and technology. Some boys have won scholarships to attend the Sunrise boarding school. About 30 boys have won this kind of financial aid. The Rwanda program is the largest one set up by the Rebecca Davis Dance Company. Miss Davis has also established dance programs in Bosnia-Herzegovina and in Guinea. About 2,000 children in the 3 countries have taken part in the project since it was launched in 2010. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Sahnun Mahmoud has never lived in Somalia, but the 21-year-old student has helped establish an organization that supports aid projects for the East African country. Sahnun Mahmoud helped start and is a director of a student group called Students for Somalia. Mr. Mahmoud attends William and Mary College in Williamsburg, Virginia. It is a long way from Somalia. However, his parents were born there, and Somalia is still home to many members of his family. His mother, Filsan Darman, helped start the aid agency Adamiga Somalia in 1987. She says the agency provided food and clothing to Somalis who had fled their homes to escape violence during the Civil War. Sahnun Mahmoud became involved in humanitarian projects early in life. He noted that many Somali aid organizations have only Somali members. He says one of his goals was to have every ethnicity and race help Somalia. This year, Students for Somalia and Adamiga are cooperating on a project to fight poverty and increase education. Mr. Mahmoud said the groups make small loans to women in refugee camps in Mogadishu. The women use the loans to start or support small businesses. Each borrower is required to have a child in school in Somalia. Each must agree to keep her children in school. Mr. Mahmoud says each woman repays the loan by giving the money to her child's school. Mr. Mahmoud believes his program provides an answer to many of Somalia's problems. He says young people will not be forced to leave school and work if their mother's businesses succeed. And it will help prevent them from becoming child soldiers for armed groups. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Help Report. Malaria can be both prevented and treated. Yet, the disease is still the 3rd biggest killer of children in the world. There's a lack of good information about malaria in some areas. Malaria is spread by bites from mosquitoes. The insects are less likely to bite people who sleep in beds covered by special chemically treated nets. Susan Eckhart is a United States Peace Corps volunteer in the West African nation of Burkina Faso. Malaria causes about 9,000 deaths there every year. Ms. Eckhart says people there depend more on treating malaria than preventing it. She says when a sick person reports a high body temperature, the person is given medicine to treat malaria. Patients are given the medicine at the first sign of sickness because it costs less than the test used to identify the disease. Peace Corps volunteers are trained so they can be involved in public education campaigns. Ms. Eckhart presents information about malaria in fun ways to help the children remember. She works with students from 1st grade through 5th grade. Older girls and boys who received training at a leadership camp help her with the malaria training. The older children present the malaria information in the local Dagara language. They wrote plays and sang songs about malaria. It is too soon to tell how much of the information in the songs and games is shared with families. But Susan Eckhart says it is a good idea to use Peace Corps volunteers to help prevent malaria. Being part of the community means sharing knowledge, she adds, especially about something as important as malaria. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. President Barack Obama signed a new farm bill into law on February 7th. The law ends guaranteed government payments to farmers. Critics say the legislation replaces the old system with farm aid that may violate international trade rules. The law also changes how the United States provides food aid around the world. The new farm bill ended $5 billion a year in automatic payments to farmers. It also expands programs that protect farmers from bad weather or low crop prices. And it offers an insurance program to protect farmers. The program guarantees that their earnings do not drop much from year to year. Dan Sumner is an economist with the University of California, Davis. He told VOA that the farm bill could cause problems. He says farmers in other parts of the world do not get the same guarantees from their governments. U.S. government payments to farmers pushed down cotton prices in the early 2000s. The United States lost an international trade dispute over those payments. Dan Sumner says the new law could reopen that dispute. Dale Moore is the chief of policy at the American Farm Bureau Federation. His group represents growers. He does not believe the law will violate the international limits on farm aid. The legislation should help food aid reach more people around the world. Earlier rules forced aid groups to buy food from American farmers. Aid workers say buying food locally is much quicker than buying food from the United States and shipping it to those who need it. Aid workers say with the same amount of money, help can now reach more hungry people. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. The governments of New York City and the state of New York are investing hundreds of millions of dollars to help develop high-technology industries. The two governments have launched 40 special workspaces known as incubators to assist startup companies. Incubators provide supportive conditions for businesses that are just starting. Such places provide a low-cost way to develop business ideas. Harlem Biospace is an incubator for biomedical engineering. For a low monthly payment, young people are given desk space and use of a science laboratory. They pay for other materials they use. Tyler Poor and his partner are happy to have a place to carry out experiments. They are developing a product that will kill bacteria on objects used in the home. He and the 17 other researchers at the Biospace Incubator share a common goal: to find solutions to biomedical problems. Edwin Vasquez is investigating the mystery of diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. He says suggestions from others in the building make the work environment at Biospace much more creative than working alone. Matthew Owens is the executive director of Harlem Biospace. He says there have been real signs of success since the incubator was launched last November. He says some of the companies that began at Biospace are already shipping products and earning money. Mr. Owens is pleased with the results at the incubator. The main goal of an incubator is to develop successful businesses. The Harlem Incubator, with its aid to young researchers, is helping to make that possible. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. Things may be changing soon for some crops in Africa. A group called the African Orphan Crops Consortium says these plants are not getting enough attention, and it thinks they could help ease hunger and improve diet on the continent. The group opened the African Plant Breeding Academy last year in Nairobi, Kenya. The academy is the product of cooperation among international organizations. They hope to use genetic information from 100 African plants and trees that researchers say have been ignored. But food scientists say these crops have many possibilities. Howard Yana Shapiro is a senior fellow at the University of California, Davis. He is also the Chief Agricultural Officer and Global Director of Plant Science and External Research for the Mars Candy Company. Mr. Shapiro says he began thinking about ways to improve diet at the local level after seeing how poor nutrition affects children in Africa and India. He says the health of babies is affected when women have a poor diet during pregnancy. These health problems, he says, cannot be corrected. Mr. Shapiro says hundreds of African plants have been ignored because they are not economically important to international trade. But food scientists say the plants still have value to people living in Africa. The African Orphan Crops Consortium plans to train plant researchers about the genetics of these crops. The group hopes that farmers will use this information to produce more food with higher nutrition levels. Mr. Shapiro says anything researchers learn will be shared with the world without cost. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. The sound of a mosquito can mean trouble in many parts of the world, but the bite of a mosquito can sometimes kill. The flying insect can carry diseases like malaria. The World Health Organization estimates that almost 630,000 people died in 2012 from malaria and causes linked to the disease. Most of these deaths were in African countries south of the Sahara Desert. In the United States, scientists are seeking ways to fight malaria. The University of California, Riverside is working to develop a more effective and less costly product to protect people from mosquitoes. Scientists there are investigating the sense of smell in mosquitoes. They found the insects use the same receptor to identify carbon dioxide in human breath and to smell our skin. Ananda Sankar Ray is leading the investigation. He says scientists tested more than 1 million chemical compounds until they found a substance that blocks the mosquito's receptor. The substance is called ethyl pyruvate. He says they found that hungry mosquitoes showed no interest in attacking a human arm because only a few of them could smell it. Genevieve Tukes was a member of the research team. She says it was not easy to find the neurons or nerve cells that recognize both the smell of human breath and skin. The scientists use special instruments to identify the signals that a mosquito's neurons send to its brain when it finds an interesting smell. Ananda Sankar Ray says a product based on ethyl pyruvate may cost less than the most effective treatment now in use. That treatment, called DEET, is too costly for most people in areas affected by malaria. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. American companies are feeling hopeful about 2014. A new report says most companies that took part in a recent survey expect stronger sales and profits this year. The National Association for Business Economics asked its 64 members about the U.S. economy. About 70% of those questioned expected the economy to grow between 2.5 and 3% this year. Ken Simonson works for the group. He says the low point for the economy came last October during the partial closure of the federal government. He says many companies seem prepared to plan to invest more in equipment in 2014. More than 1/3 of the businesses reported higher profit margins, a measurement of financial gain. Nearly half the companies expect to raise prices. However, only 37% say they plan to add more workers in the next 6 months. Businesses that plan to expand say a lack of skilled workers is a central problem. Mr. Simonson says about 25% of the businesses surveyed have a difficult time finding skilled labor. This is a problem for petrochemical companies that create chemical products made from petroleum. These companies recently announced projects valued at nearly $100 billion. Mr. Simonson says more workers are needed for these projects. He warns that without more workers, there will be delays and costs will increase. Some projects could be delayed or canceled. Most of the businesses questioned say they expect no effect from new central bank policies. Only 20% expect any harmful effects from the country's new healthcare program. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Dyslexia is a learning disorder. It interferes with the ability to recognize words and, for some people, to understand what they have read. Experts say dyslexia affects about 5 to 10% of the population in the United States. Researchers have long known that people with dyslexia write or read words and letters backwards, in the wrong order. But a new study shows that dyslexic people may have trouble redirecting their attention between senses. It suggests that such individuals may have trouble moving quickly from what they read to what they hear. The findings were published in the journal Current Biology. Vanessa Harar of Britain's University of Oxford led the study. She tested 17 people with dyslexia and 19 others without any reading problems. The volunteers were asked to push a button as quickly as possible when they heard a sound, saw a light, or experienced both together. Dr. Harar compared the speed of their reactions. She found that people with dyslexia were just as fast as the others when they saw only a picture or heard only a sound. But the dyslexics had a slower reaction time when they heard a sound and saw a picture at the same time. Dr. Harar thinks that playing action video games could help dyslexic people move more quickly from seeing to hearing. She adds that fast-moving images in video games force the eyes to move quickly. She says the games train the attention system to move quickly. The study also showed that dyslexic people might learn more quickly if they heard the sound of a letter or word before seeing it. This may affect how dyslexic children are taught to read. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.